Buongiorno a tutti, facciamo il nostro benvenuto a Laura Poitras e al suo staff, al suo intero staff. Carlo Coppola di Manifesta insomma, è qui insieme a noi perché, come sapete, facciamo un applauso a Carlo e a Maria Chiara, lo staff di Manifesta. Evento straordinario, nel corso di questa mattinata si spiegherà tutto quello che si ha in mente, che si sta progettando per voi e con voi, insieme a Laura e il suo intero staff. La parola a Carlo.
Buongiorno a tutti, breve presentazione, penso Laura Poitras non ha bisogno di parole, la conoscete tutte, regista di Citizenfour, il film Risk che avete appena visto. Noi oggi siamo qua insieme anche a Henrik Molke, dov'è Ioni? È sparito Ioni, non lo vedo. Eccolo là, produttore di Laura. Giusto per presentarvi anche un'idea di come avviare una collaborazione tra il CSC, Manifesta e Laura. Forse iniziamo però con delle domande, con un Q&A che voi avete del film che avete appena visto, Risk.
Magari prima Ivan Scinardo forse vuole salutare Laura.
Beh, intanto grazie di essere qui, per noi è un grande onore averti un po' in quella che abbiamo ribattezzato la casa del cinema, un luogo dove poter accogliere gli artisti, ma soprattutto chi il cinema lo fa davvero e chi lo fa di mestiere, per cui aprire alla nostra attività didattica questi incontri, questo tipo di incontri per noi è motivo di grande onore e prestigio.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Unfortunately, I don't speak Italian, so that means don't be shy. If you want anything repeated, we can translate. So it's really wonderful to be invited here to participate in Manifesta, and we've been meeting with the team, and we're really excited about this. So what our plan is for today, this gathering. I know that you've just seen Risk, so we thought that maybe at the beginning I could just talk, if people want to talk about that or ask any questions about that film or my work in general, I'm happy to engage. But what I'm actually really excited to do here today is to talk about a proposal for collaboration for the work that we are starting to do for Manifesta, and to talk about the potential collaboration between the school and that project. So do you want to translate a little?
Posso dire io se vuoi. Contentissima di essere qui, vi ringrazio per la vostra presenza. Cercheremo di, in questa prima fase del nostro incontro, Laura risponderà alle vostre domande rispetto al film che avete appena visto, e successivamente passeremo invece all'esplicazione un po', a spiegarvi, a presentarvi il progetto che insieme a Manifesta stiamo portando avanti, che porteremo avanti nei prossimi mesi e che vi vede direttamente coinvolti. Ci sono domande? Ok.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah, so I can, yeah, so why don't we dive in and I'm here to, if people want to ask about the film that you just saw, or if you want to ask about anything about documentary, we can do that for a little time, but we want to save time to talk about the stuff that we're really excited about, where we can hopefully team up together.
Allora, qualsiasi domanda sia sul film o in generale sul documentario, non dovete essere timidi, se ci sono problemi di lingua lo dite, siamo qua per tradurre, non c'è assolutamente problema.
Hi Laura, I appreciate your work very much, and I would ask you a specific thing about your film Risk. I don't understand, when is it that you change your mind about Assange during the movie? Because I know you were very excited to tell us about WikiLeaks world, but I think at a certain point the things changed. So my question is, has the experience with Snowden has influenced you in any way?
Thank you. Is it worth translating, or did people understand? Did everyone get it? Yeah. So you're right that the film, I filmed it over 6 years' time. I began in 2011 and filmed, and it did, my relationship and feelings about the work that WikiLeaks was doing changed during that time. And so when I began filming, I was very optimistic about the project, and over the course of filming became more pessimistic, and partly because of some of the work that they were doing and the dynamics. And so it did change my relationship to WikiLeaks. And I think, I mean, in a way, it feels to me like if you think of a narrative progression, it feels a bit like a tragedy. You know, you have a person, like I still have respect for Julian, but I don't respect all of his choices. And so I feel like he made choices that kind of lead to alienating a lot of people. And so the film is about that, and that's why I chose to put my voice in the film as a reflection on that process. And it did change when I was contacted by Edward Snowden. It changed my relationship with Julian, because he then wanted this material that I had, and I said no. And so we had this, kind of conflict. You know, he thought that I should go to London and say, here are all the documents, and I didn't do that. And I didn't do it because Ed made the choice. It was up to him. You know, if he wanted to go to WikiLeaks, and he could have done that. That was the choice of Ed. And so he didn't make that choice, and so it created a conflict between us. And that conflict, I think, then led to a kind of falling out that you see in the film.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi. I have a question, maybe two. In this school, we have two different courses about reportage with the more journalistic approach, and here an artistic documentary. I think, looking your works, I think they are more closer to this journalistic approach, and so. Can you feel a difference, a distance between artistic documentary, more cinematographic approach, and a reportagistic approach? And if you think that you can give us advice that maybe we should think less to the poetic, aesthetic, photographic thoughts, and maybe spend more energy in find our big story and show to people with a charming storytelling, with engaging storytelling.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. If anyone wants to translate, just raise your hand on that. Okay. I think that's a really interesting question. I actually position my work more on the artistic side, even though it's dealing with some journalistic topics. And so, first of all, my advice for every maker is everybody is driven by, I consider filmmaking as a form of art, and then I consider art to be a form of expression. And so I think that everybody should pursue, what it is that they feel that they need to express, what they're passionate about, and use the tools and methodology that they're passionate about. And so that means, I love very abstract films, and I love maybe more journalistic, but I want everything that I see to you feel like that there's an author behind them, like that what somebody's trying to say, that they're not like neutral or generic, but that there's a voice. And so I don't have a prescription. I don't say, oh, this is better than that. I don't believe in that. I definitely feel that my work is it's kind of, my process is, I'm usually interested in an idea or a theme, and that I feel strongly about, that I want to say something about. So, for instance, well, a lot of my work has been about U.S. policy globally, because I feel as a U.S. citizen that it's important to document what my country is doing. And so then I sort of find things that I feel like I want to pursue or say something about, and then travel to those places, and then try to find stories where those issues can come forward through those individuals. And then when that happens, once they become about like actually people, then it sort of becomes maybe a little bit less about me and more about the people that I'm filming, even though there's always a dialogue between what I'm doing as a filmmaker and an artist and the people that I film. So with the issue of surveillance was a topic that I'd been working on or thinking about for a long time, and then that's when Edward Snowden contacted me, and then he became the focus of the film, and that's often how my and what I'm interested in is how, if you understand sort of contemporary history through the lens of people who are really living that history, not the people on the sidelines, the like politicians or people who are basically debating, but like what does it really mean to be on the front lines, and how can we understand the world better through individual eyes? So that's sort of my practice, but that's just what works for me, you know what I mean? And it doesn't work for everyone. Like I tend to work in the field, I do my own camera work most of the time and my own sound work, so it's oftentimes just me. And I love that kind of work because it allows me to be really patient and let the story unfold, but it's not the right way for everyone. Some people like want to go with a camera and a crew and they want to have a really sense of control of the environment, and that's great too. So I don't have like a sense of one type of practice being good and one being less. I just think like people should really work on the practice that they're trying to develop and want to develop their voice.
Hi, hello. So I have a question. Following the movie, I had like the sensation that you also took a risk in a certain way, and I imagine that probably you've been under surveillance because of your movies, and so I was wondering. I don't know if any one of us will ever reach like that kind of topic, or but do you have?
You might very soon, but yeah, go ahead. That's the second part of this talk. Yeah.
And yeah, my question was if you have any advice to us, so how to like simply protect our data security information or something. But very even general. I don't know, just to us.
Yeah. So it's a really good question. I mean, first of all, I mean, my feeling about taking risk is like I don't take risk for the sake of taking risks, but I have taken risks in the work that I do, and it's always about like what you can potentially, like what is the potential goal, and is the goal worth the risk? I mean, that's always the question that I ask, and I also know that the risks are different for different people, right? You have different risks if you're an American citizen and if you're from Sicily. I mean, so like I think like everybody has to know what their risk is and what their threshold is, right? But I also think like the more risk you take is sometimes you can accomplish more, right? But I don't take, I would never encourage anyone to take risks lightly. In terms of like digital security, that's something that I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but I'm working on a project where we're going to put some guidelines out for anyone who's working on sensitive material. How do you protect your footage when you're crossing borders? How do you protect it legally? Because I think that these are really, you're dealing with sources oftentimes, or at least I am, and you have an obligation to protect them. And so I'm really, it's becoming more and more, as surveillance is becoming more and more pervasive, it's more and more necessary for filmmakers who are working with any sources that potentially have exposure to know how to protect their material digitally. So, yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah. And then the other part is, the risks. The films that I've made, I've taken some risk, but they're usually about people who are also taking risks. Like, I mean, it's oftentimes people who are really putting themselves in many cases, putting their lives on the line. And so I feel like if that you have to really take the responsibility seriously, how to protect sources, and when you work with people who are risking so much. Yeah, we're hopefully in the next couple months we'll make them public. And it's also, if anybody's working, like, you can email me directly, and we could give you some real advice. If anyone, myself or Henrik, who's here, who's going to talk later, if anybody's like, oh, I'm working on something sensitive, like, pull us aside, and we can help. I mean, basically, I'll give you two baseline things, or two things everybody should be using that are easy. Do people know what Signal is, which is an app? If people have how many people have smartphones? Yeah, not that many. Okay, so it's not going to be that useful, but it's a free app that allows you to use encryption. I assume most of you do research on the internet, right? If you're doing any kind of research that's sensitive, I would download the Tor browser. Do people know the Tor browser? Encrypted, so basically it's like when you use, Google browser or whatever, but it's running over multiple relays, and it's encrypted. So if you were researching the mafia, and you don't really want that associated with your name, right? So you would download Tor, it's free, and you put it on your computer, and then when you want to search something, you plug it into Tor, and then it's not associated with, it goes through multiple relays, so that the search isn't associated with you. So I think everybody should have Tor, it's free, there's no reason not to use it. So there's those kinds of, but we can, if anyone has a project which is sensitive, then pull us aside over here.
What about Assange? I wonder if it was easy to get close with him and to get familiar with Assange, considering who he is and his position. What was it difficult to maintain your own perspective of things during the film, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult to. It took a long time between when I first contacted WikiLeaks and when I began filming. It was a long process. They were under a lot of pressure, and then I filmed over a long period of time. So it was slow. And in terms of maintaining, I'm interested in making films that are, that they're my voice and that they have my perspective in it. I think the hardest thing was, I've not had an experience before where somebody that I began filming with, where things turned kind of more negative, and that was hard. I mean, it's just hard. It's like, so it was hard to figure out how to incorporate that into the film and make that part of the journey. And when I began the film, I really thought it was going to be about WikiLeaks journalism, and it kind of shifted much more to be about Julian and Julian fighting the case in Sweden, and became much more also about gender, and which was not what I intended to make. So that was a bit of I wasn't really looking for, like, that wasn't the story I was trying to tell, but it became really a focus of the story. Okay, so. Yeah, I mean, we can, maybe we should segue, and then if people have more questions about the film, or because I really want to talk about this potential collaboration. So, do you want to? So Andreas, who's one of the 4 curators at Manifesta, approached me and the team that I work with about participating, and so we've been brainstorming and researching like what we want to do. And one of the pieces of the project that we are very interested in and want to talk about and share some past work is to come up with like So we're thinking about if it's possible between our team and the school to create something like a film clinic where we're going to research or make documentary work about a particular theme. And the theme that we're going to be focusing on is U.S. military presence in Sicily. And yeah. Okay. Do you want to translate? Yeah, go. Yeah, I think so.
Allora, in pratica Laura adesso vi presenterà un po' l'idea di questa film clinic, che è in pratica un progetto didattico che vorremmo realizzare insieme a voi tutti, che si concentra sulla presenza di soldati americani in Sicilia, che è una tematica molto generale, la presenza degli americani nel mondo, però concentrandoci sulla Sicilia e sviluppando una riflessione critica su questa situazione.
Well, we're very happy that this is happening, and we're very happy that Laura, Henrik, and Johnny, that I don't know whether are here. And thank you very much to the school, to the faculty, and of course to all of you for being here. This is a project that will be part of Manifesta 12, that, as you know, is happening already here in Palermo. Manifesta is a nomadic European biennial that each 2 years happens in a different city. And the reason why it's now in Palermo is because Palermo is in the center of so many stories, so many things that are changing the world and are changing Europe, the tension between the North and the South. Since the very beginning, the 4 curators were agreeing that it would be amazing to count on your work and to have you as one of the artists. The work that this project, as we've been discussing it, is a project that will be a collaboration between Laura and your team with the school. The idea is that there's this collaboration in the co-production of these works in which you will be coordinated with Laura's team, developing projects, and that those projects will be integrated in Manifesta. Manifesta has a series of formats in which the work can be presented. There's, of course, the exhibition and a part of it. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, please.
Cioè, sommarizziamo, Andres è uno dei 4 curatori di Manifesta che quest'anno si terrà a Palermo. Manifesta è una biennale europea che ogni 2 anni si sposta in una città nuova, facendo ricerche e riflettendo su degli aspetti sociopolitici di quella città. Questa volta si è scelto Palermo perché Palermo in Sicilia nel mondo è un centro dove stanno succedendo tantissime cose, dove si stanno concentrando tantissime cose, gli occhi sono puntati non solo dai turisti ma in vari aspetti sulla Sicilia e su Palermo. Insieme hanno invitato Laura anche per questo motivo, perché lei ovviamente rappresenta uno di questi punti di vista dove la Sicilia si ritrova dentro, come con la presenza dei militari americani. Adesso vi presenteranno questo progetto che intendiamo di fare in collaborazione con voi del CSC, con gli studenti, noi di Manifesta e il gruppo di Laura insieme a Henrik e Ioni.
Yeah, and the idea is that the result of this work is integrated in Manifesta, is presented in Manifesta. We don't know yet, it's an open project, so it's a project that you all will be doing. And there's different ways in which it can be introduced. Of course, there will be a part that will be shown maybe in the format of an installation, it will be projected, but other parts might be better to be shown through the public program and maybe organizing discussions around them. So everything's very open. but it's something that you will be discussing in the process.
Yeah, I think it may be, yeah, sorry.
Allora, l'idea è che nello sviluppo di questo progetto si realizzerà un format che può essere o un film o un corto o un'installazione, oppure si potrà integrare nel public program di Manifesta. Cioè, noi su questa fase vogliamo ancora rimanere molto aperti. Non è l'idea di andare a creare un documentario di 90 minuti che poi viene fatto vedere al cinema, è di pensare questa tematica e questa collaborazione in modo aperto con l'integrazione ovviamente dei media audiovisuali. All'interno di Manifesta, sì, ovviamente.
So as a bit of an example, I want to talk about a project. It was a collaboration between myself, Henrik, and Joni as producer. It was a project we did with the Whitney Biennial, and there was one particular project called Anarchist that is, we're going to show you some slides from. So Henrik, do you want to come?
Vi farà vedere adesso dei pezzi di un progetto nominato Anarchist.
Sure. So Laura and I have been working together since 2013. We started out working on the Snowden documents, and I came in to first report a couple of stories, and then we started working on sort of how we could work in a broader way and scale our operation with the documents and include more people. And so at one point we decided to have a look at what was aesthetically interesting in the archive of documents, and specifically we looked at images. I took, come again?
Allora, Hendrik e Laura collaborano dal 2013, facendo un po' di ricerche anche sull'estetica del documentario, di che cosa significa lavorare esteticamente con dei documenti, analizzando proprio la struttura di documenti e come un documento, come un archivio può essere trasmesso a un pubblico.
And my background is both in journalism and in documentary filmmaking, but also audio documentary. And so I often find that it's important to work in a specific way when you're dealing with a subject journalistically, but often you miss other aspects that are equally important. And so I like to work often in tandem with artists or with other people who can add that extra element. And so we had been looking at the archive purely from a journalistic perspective. What are the news stories in here? What are the stories that are important to get out quickly to the world? And after the big hits had already been sort of played, we started thinking, are there other things we could work with in here? And so at one point we took all the images in the archive and looked at them, and we started finding images like this that we didn't know what they were showing. We just thought they looked interesting. And so my job was to basically research what do they show, and quite quickly we found out that they were linked to a specific operation in Cyprus. It had the code name Anarchist, and I'll let you translate in 1 second. Basically what the operation does, it listens to satellites and other kinds of digital signals, and then it allows you to basically intercept and sometimes do things like we found out that some of these were space rockets, but some of them were drones in Israel. And so the Americans and the British were able to see what the drone operators were doing in Israel and keep an eye on how Israel was acting, for example, towards Iran and other countries.
Per prima cosa, vi serve la traduzione? O capite tutto? Sì. Allora, Hendrik è un giornalista e un documentarista che però nelle modalità e nella metodologia del giornalismo si sente anche limitato e cerca sempre di sposare il documentario con un approccio giornalistico. In questa collaborazione che si chiama Anarchist hanno fatto ricerca su degli archivi e su dei documenti, scoprendo che esistono delle informazioni che si riescono a leggere da questi documenti, da questo immaginario, che rivelano delle operazioni di droni del militare israeliano. Cioè,
so basically there's this base in Cyprus and that base is called Anarchist. Just like the Moors here, or they have on top of a mountain, they have big antennas and they listen to stuff. And these are data dumps, data representations.
Sì, queste qua sono delle rappresentazioni di dati che vengono letti da questi satelliti in Israele. Come il MOS da noi a Niscemi, esistono anche là questi satelliti che intercettano delle informazioni, e queste informazioni sono riusciti a scoprire che erano abbastanza aperte e leggibili per altri stati.
And then I'm going to kick over the story. So this was an installation project for the Whitney. There were multiple pieces to it, and it was actually the first piece in the series. So I was interested in how to work with these archive and top secret documents in a way that functioned in an art space, but were also functioning in a news space. And we were interested in that sort of multiple approaches, like something that feels maybe more aesthetic or poetic, and something that feels like, okay, this is information or this is journalism, and having them coexist. And we're interested in them coexisting both from artistic practice, because that's interesting to us, like how different perspectives shed different light on an issue. And we were also doing it because we were dealing with top secret documents, and we were dealing with an institution that was a bit nervous about top secret documents, to be quite frank. Their lawyers were a little nervous. And so we were working with going through a news process so that the board of trustees at the Whitney wouldn't get too nervous. But we were also breaking news. And so at the same time that we opened the exhibition, Henrik published the journalism findings of this story.
Allora, questa esposizione, cioè il risultato di questa ricerca era un'esposizione al Whitney Museum a New York, dove hanno creato questo immaginario, cioè anche da un punto di vista artistico hanno cercato di analizzare che cosa sono queste immagini che hanno collezionato. Ovviamente anche sotto degli aspetti legali una procedura molto, molto delicata, dove ci sono stati anche dei conflitti con il Whitney Museum, che ovviamente ha una sensibilità a che cosa fa vedere, e però anche un conflitto nel senso dobbiamo far vedere queste informazioni, cioè sono informazioni che loro ritengono necessarie di far vedere ad un pubblico. E contemporaneamente all'apertura di questa esposizione al Whitney, Henrik ha pubblicato questo essay.
And for me, as a journalist, this was really interesting, because normally you start with either you have a document that says a specific thing and you want to prove that, or you start with an assumption, it's a bad thing that the Americans are doing something on Sicily. You start with some point, and this was a different point of departure, because we started with these images, and then we started to realize, oh wait, these different steps of the images are different parts of the process of finding out. We basically backtracked what these are, and then at the end we found, this was quite late in the process, but we found this one image, which is actually the first ever public image of drones that are armed flying over Gaza. So people in Gaza have been hearing drones and sometimes been unable to prove that they've been attacked by drones, but it's been a big public secret that they were operating armed drones, but it hasn't been publicly documented. And so it was very satisfying to start with this, what's pretty, what's looking good in here, and then actually the Israeli, so we worked with an Israeli newspaper called Yediot Aronoth, Ynet, and this was, they called it the biggest Israeli intelligence failure in history. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it was definitely a big story in Israel, and I thought that was really fun as a journalist to come to that place in a totally different journey than you would normally do as an investigative reporter. So that's why I always find it's very stimulating to work in this way, and why I could imagine that working with you in your ways of thinking and doing things in a very different way than I would do as a journalist could be rewarding.
La cosa interessante di questo progetto è che la procedura in pratica è stata invertita, cioè di solito te hai un'ipotesi, per esempio la presenza degli americani in Sicilia è problematica. Invece in questo progetto loro hanno avuto completamente un altro approccio, cioè loro hanno prima trovato delle immagini che a loro piacevano, che avevano un valore estetico, e da questi sono riusciti a collezionare e a vedere che ci si nascondeva qualcosa dietro di molto interessante. Per esempio questa immagine, che è la prima immagine di un drone armato che vola su Gaza. Ha creato ovviamente uno scandalo, cioè i giornali israeliani hanno creato questo scandalo, hanno pubblicato questa informazione, e per lui, per Hendrik, questo approccio è molto interessante, no? Di riuscire a invertire una procedura e di arrivare a delle informazioni che arrivano al pubblico in modo completamente diverso, ed è molto soddisfacente arrivare a questi punti anche con un approccio artistico.
So what we're here now this week looking at is exploring and researching how what we're going to present at Manifesta, and we're exploring the U.S. military bases, and particularly how Sicily is becoming sort of a center point for what's happening in the U.S. global military apparatus, including things like drone strikes. And there are two particular bases that we're going to be visiting this weekend. There's the one at Nishemi, which is part of a antenna communication system that I think most people, it's been a controversy here, most people have read about it, and there's been a very strong activism community, and we're going to be meeting with activists today, which I'm really excited about. I mean, these activists have managed to slow down a multi-billion-dollar project, U.S. military project, for several years now. So it's a quite impressive success, I think, for activism. So we want to focus on that, and then the other base at Sigonilla, where they're building. Do we want to talk about that in terms of a backup for Rammstein?
Questi punti di intelligenza come questi satelliti in Israele sono di genere una cosa molto interessante per Laura, e questo fine settimana infatti andremo anche a Nishemi a vedere il MUOS e a Sigonella, che sono due punti equivalenti a quel punto in Israele dove la presenza americana ovviamente si fa sentire molto molto forte.
Yeah, so I think, for example, very briefly, I think both locations for me are interesting, but I don't live on the island. I don't know the things you do, so I don't want to limit us to working specifically necessarily on only those two things. I just find them as a journalist very interesting. The Moors, because it's a part of a global network that allows the military to communicate on their own network. They don't need necessarily the internet or other public infrastructure, and so it's a very important piece of equipment for the military. It's secure, it's precise, and it works all over the world, and it's basically a similar network to what you use every day on your cell phones, only it's for the military only, and it works everywhere, which is nice for them. But the other thing I found interesting about it is that the reason Sicily has become so important is that it doesn't work with just 3 antennas. It has to be all of them at the same time. And so because Sicily got this big public protest, they actually had to put a lot of effort into making Sicily happy. So I think there's a big disconnect between what the activists think it's doing and what the military think they're doing, and how dangerous it is and such. And they had to sort of accept, even though I think the military think, oh, those crazy Sicilians, they don't know anything about science, and we're just going to let them. So I think that's a very interesting space. What is actually reality here? What is actually going on from a factual perspective? But I also think it's, yeah, go ahead.
Allora, Hendrik dice, lui ovviamente non vivendo in Sicilia, i suoi punti di interessi sulla presenza americana in Sicilia ovviamente sono questi luoghi dove la presenza si fa vedere notevolmente, e dove lui è anche tecnicamente affascinato da questa cosa, perché in fondo non è nient'altro che una rete, come una rete telefonica che noi usiamo ogni giorno, soltanto limitata a le informazioni che riguardano soltanto il militare, cioè chiusa al pubblico. La cosa che però lo affascina ancora di più è la differenza di informazione che c'è tra il militare, un governo che mette su una tecnologia del genere, e l'interpretazione dell'attivista, della popolazione che è spaventata da questa cosa, che ritiene questi luoghi pericolosi per la salute, dove magari il governo ha un altro punto di ricerca, sa di più o anche di meno, o cerca anche di influenzare la popolazione. Ed è in questo spazio nella realtà di questi luoghi dove ci vogliamo muovere, dove Hendrik trova uno spazio interessante di ricerca.
I'm very impressed, by the way, with your translation. I'll try to keep it. And Sigonella, similarly, is interesting because there's a lot going on in Northern Africa at the moment, in the past, they've only been able to operate. So when you have a drone operator in the US, for technical reasons, because the Earth is round, they can't operate the drone from there. They need a point closer to the drone where the signal can go up to the satellite. Because you remember when you made calls, probably not many of you actually have made satellite phone calls back in the days when there was a delay, but sometimes on Skype you have it. In the same way, if you have a delay when you're trying to attack someone in the other side of the world, that's not a good thing, because the time you hit them, they're somewhere else. Yeah. So they need a place close to where they're operating, where they can relay the signal up to a satellite. And they're building that right now, as far as I understand, at Sigonella, so that they're not so dependent on their other station in Europe, which is in a place called Ramstein in Germany.
La cosa interessante invece di Sigonella a confronto del MUOS è che è stradicecamente in Sicilia un luogo interessante per la tecnologia, cioè in pratica la Terra, essendo rotonda, crea dei problemi. Cioè, se tu nel Nevada stai pilotando un drone, hai un periodo, un tempo, una latenza,
Latency, exactly.
che ovviamente ti mette fuori gioco, cioè te prima che fai l'intervento sei in ritardo. E la Sicilia per gli interventi soprattutto nel nord dell'Africa è un punto molto molto interessante, strategico, anche perché sposta un po' l'attenzione da un punto in Germania, which is called?
Rammstein, to strike the band.
Forse conoscete il gruppo a Rammstein, perché ovviamente la Germania anche storicamente ha dei problemi, cioè il pubblico è molto più preoccupato ad avere una posizione americana in Germania che facendo qui in Sicilia, dove la presenza americana, ritorniamo sempre sul tema, ha tutto un altro valore. La Germania storicamente si deve un po' più...
So there are two things they've tried to sort of keep a bit quiet, which is one, in 2013 they got authority to fly what they call defensive flights with drones out of Sigonella, so they could fly armed drones from Sigonella, even though there's been a big public backlash in Italy, and it's unclear how much they're doing now. That's the first thing. The other thing, they're very, I think that's, as a reporter, very interesting that they're building this relay facility. Is also interesting because it makes Sicily totally, you cannot, they really need Sicily if that happens.
Sigonella, come diceva, ha due punti interessanti. Uno è che veramente viene usato come aeroporto di droni armati, cioè passano per la Sicilia, da qui partono droni armati che vanno a fare degli interventi armati in guerra, e dall'altro punto di vista appunto l'aspetto tecnologico che permette un intervento molto più realistico, e per lui questi qua sono due punti molto, molto interessanti di ricerca.
And I know that we've just presented a lot of sort of abstract, political sort of news. But what we're really interested in is we're going to be going out there. I'm interested in a lot of different approaches to how to tell what's happening there. So, for instance, there was a written story that I thought was really had this interesting framing from a documentary perspective. Is that there's a man who lives, the closest person who lives to Neshemi has a pacemaker in his heart. he's discovered that once they started building this this antenna, that his pacemaker it's not working right, so he has to keep coming to Palermo to have it fixed. And so he's become an activist because literally his heart is being impacted, or he believes it's being impacted by this antenna. And so I'm interested, what would it be like, for instance, to film with this person in the sort of shadows of this sort of global network of supporting the U.S. military. And Henrik was there yesterday and was talking about the sort of the economies around prostitution that emerge next to military bases is also something very interesting. And I think that there are probably countless interesting stories from a documentary perspective that we're going to start to explore, and then would love to talk to you guys about our plan now is we wanted to tell you about what we're thinking, and then to have a follow-up, more intimate session on Monday with any students who might be interested in talking about this further, so that we can see if there's interest in collaborating.
Laura diceva che a parte questi aspetti politici che ovviamente sono la base dell'interesse di ricerca che fanno sempre, queste ricerche portano sempre anche a delle storie molto molto personali. Per esempio c'è una persona che ha il bypass, che abita e che vive vicino a Niscemi, che purtroppo per la tecnologia questo bypass si va sempre in tilt. Cosa deve fare? Deve uscire da una zona di interferenze, deve venire a Palermo per risettare questo bypass. Cioè, la presenza di queste tecnologie hanno un'influenza su delle persone, ed è questo anche un aspetto interessante artistico e documentaristico che loro vogliono seguire, cioè di andare alle ricerche di queste storie, perché queste storie sono comunque uno specchio della presenza americana in Sicilia. Non è soltanto l'aspetto politico e tecnologico, è proprio l'impatto che ha sulla popolazione, ed è questo che vogliamo andare a scoprire anche insieme a voi, trovando delle storie, trovando degli personaggi, trovando delle narrazioni che possano riflettere questa tematica. E per questa cosa abbiamo intenzione anche di rincontrarci con chi o ha già un'idea o ha l'interesse di sviluppare un progetto lunedì sera da noi al Teatro Garibaldi per fare un brainstorming, cioè alle 18 esattamente di sera, per mettere sul tavolo idee, qualsiasi cosa che vi viene in mente, e vedere come si riesce a creare una collaborazione.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, you asked the question before about the difference between the reportage and the journalistic approach and the aesthetic. I am interested in the journalistic approach, and if we did a project, I would probably try to report on something. But that, of course, doesn't mean that I'm expecting, that's what I'm trying to get out of being here and working on this. But I actually find it always very interesting when you can do that and something completely different that works on another level. And so that's what I love, to be surprised and experience something that totally was not what I was. So anything is interesting in a balance often with the facts.
Facendo riferimento alla domanda di prima sul reportage, sul documentario più estetico, poetico, ovviamente Henrik dice lui è più interessato all'aspetto giornalistico di queste tematiche, però quello che che vogliamo arrivare a capire insieme è quali sono le possibilità che ci permettono di formalizzare queste tematiche, cioè ognuno ha un interesse proprio, ed è quello il bello, è portare avanti questi punti di vista.
Yeah, so I wanted to show a 10-minute film, which is another collaboration between myself and Henrik and Joni, who's in the back, who's a producer. And so this is also a project that is building off of sort of some journalistic work, but then is also translating it into a narrative context. So this is emerged from, we began with, Henrik and I were reporting on AT&T, which I think you all know is a mobile or phone carrier, and their partnership with the American intelligence, the NSA. And so there's this building in downtown Manhattan that we were fascinated by, for many years. And so we began this process of reporting on what was happening in the building and what was happening there in terms of surveillance. And in the process of doing that, we discovered that the building was, not only was it interesting as a point of global surveillance, it's not just in New York, but it was also had a fascinating architect who built it. And this architect was, did a lot of work for the US military and maybe worked for the CIA, but we weren't ever able to confirm that. But it's a very interesting building from an architectural perspective and also from a surveillance perspective.
Allora adesso vedremo un film di circa 10 minuti che Laura ha fatto insieme a Hendrik e Ioni, che l'ha prodotto. È una riflessione su AT&T, non so, lo conoscete tutte, no?
Yeah, what's the Italian one? The Italian one is
Telecom, Team, Vodafone, Team.
Yeah.
Team, yeah.
Sì, in pratica l'interesse in questo progetto è non solo andare a scoprire le tecnologie che vengono usate, ma anche proprio è un aspetto di architettura, cioè come l'architettura rispecchia proprio visualmente ciò che succede dietro le mura.
And actually, for me, I'm a very stubborn person. When we first did the reporting on AT&T, the New York Times didn't want to report the actual locations. And so when later it seemed more safe, and when I was sure that this was one building, then we decided to do this story, even though New York Times had said no. We did the story in New York Times, and it was a very big story. But this was actually what I really wanted to do, and so it was fantastic that we could work together and with Yoni on.
It was actually a funny sort of how you can use culture to sort of get at hard news, because the Times, we wanted to talk about this building, it made them very nervous. Again, it's like top secret, your institutions, everyone gets very nervous, they get freaked out, you can't tell the world that the NSA is spying from a building in New York. And we said, well, we think we're still going to do it. And then we did it, and then of course there was a big spread in the New York Times in the culture section about the building that was there, so they covered it. They just didn't want to take the risk in the first place. So I'm going to show this. This is 10 minutes, and it's a kind of a translation from these primary documents and our fascination with this building. And I don't know how many people know Mr. Robot. Do people know the series Mr. Robot? You might recognize the voice. Is that you or me? So Rami Malek did the narration of, he's reading top secret documents. So hopefully we'll get audio. If not, I'm going to have to stop and restart.
Temporary Duty Handbook, a guide for traveling to site. The purpose of this handbook is to provide proper procedures and guidelines when traveling on official business in support of the program. Traveler is not to overtly identify him or herself as an employee of the National Security Agency or a member of the intelligence community. The program has vehicles available for visiting sites that require U.S. government anonymity. Keys are available from Redacted on the second floor of the Redacted building in room Redacted, and in the file cabinet outside the program director's office. The cover vehicles are leased by the FBI through a commercial cover company. Personnel are aware of the FBI link but have no knowledge of NSA's involvement. No one should ever have contact with a leasing company. These vehicles are for official use only, to include the transport of NSA equipment and personnel who actively support NSA FBI programs. These programs currently include Blarney, Fairview, Stormbrew, and Oakstar. In keeping with operational security purposes, FBI recommends following an indirect route between NSA and covert sites. In the case of an accident, contact the police and request an accident report. Identify yourself as a DoD employee, unless reporting your identity could compromise an operation or site. In the event of an accident that could compromise an operation or site, use your personal identification. Arrangements will be made through the FBI to contact all parties to provide correct and accurate information. Check with visit site point of contact for guidance on proper attire prior to traveling. Non-casual attire could cause an operational security red flag. No military uniforms or NSA badges should be worn. The employees should maintain a low profile, decline from venturing off on their own, and always follow the guidance of the program's security representatives. Visits to partner meeting facilities. Titan Point. Coordinate with NSA point of contact redacted prior to visit. The Titan point of contact will be responsible for notifying FBI Site Watch officer and coordinating the security-related details with the partner. When approaching facility, ring the buzzer and wait for admittance.
Blarney Program Engineering Report. Site, Titan Point. All equipment has been ordered and received. Signal has been duplicated with a 3070 splitter. At this time, we are fully processing the voice over IP and video teleconferencing data and have developed an interim solution for the high data rates on existing architecture.
When traveling to the partner's facilities or other program sites such as Titan Point, provide your family with a coworker's phone number in case of an emergency at home. Family members and coworkers who are not cleared can be given generic travel plans and general purpose for visit. That is, attend technical meetings, site visit, or install equipment.
Fairview and Blarney engineers collaborated to enable the delivery of 700 megabits per second of data traffic from the United Nations mission in New York. The initial feedback has been positive. Blarney engineers and analysts indicate high quality in both voice over IP and video teleconference collection.
Always be aware of your audience. Remain cognizant of the clearance level of the persons you're speaking or meeting with. Remain courteous to partners. Remember, this is a partnership, not a contractual relationship.
Hi. About the project of U.S. military army on Italian territory, I think it's just a little part of the power of U.S. army, because in the Middle East of the world, they have the Qatar base, the base of Israel, is intrinsic, right word, the control of enemy area. And in Italy, I can feel the power of the U.S. Army, because they didn't never expect the no-flight zone, the our flight zone, the Italian control, the Italian supremacy, because they don't need to talk with us. They just used our base, his base in our territory for control of the Mediterranean and the other area. And about this project, the insert of Sicily base is just a little bit part, or on your project, or you wanna instead you wanna go inside this base, you wanna solve the problematic that create the citizen and
yeah, I think I understand your question. I mean, we're interested in Sicily. We're not going to go to the global. We're not going to include the idea is to stay here and see what we can learn here, and very much in dialogue with the Manifesta. Like, we wanted to do something that's specific to here because we've been invited here, and then as a U.S. or myself as a U.S. director, I want to do something specific, like what is. So but it's very specific to here. Does that answer? Yeah, I mean, do you want to?
I think one of the things I've struggled with in my career is often the topics I work with are very complicated. It's hard to understand the internet, for example. So I look for kind of the principle of metonymy, like finding a small thing that works metonymia, like works for the bigger whole thing. And so I think it's often practical to look at what is the smallest element, or what is the small local story that can tell the bigger story, just because as humans it's easier to understand a big, connection by looking at the smallest part. I don't know if necessarily that's the method that will work for this project, but I just find that, I've tried to understand how the internet works generally, and I've done so by going out to find the places where the internet is. And with surveillance, I've tried to find the physical locales and the physicality, the cables, and similarly with this project in Italy, I find it's interesting to look at which practical, physical, everyday, consequences or traces are there of the fact that they're, warfare is so strange now. There's a person going to work over in Nevada, and then the signal has to go through these cables, and then it goes to Sicily, and then there's a satellite, and then there's a drone, and a lot of this we can't really know about. So what can we know? There probably is something much easier to tell that still, deals with this problematic.
Thanks. Then I think the plan is we're going to try to, anybody who's interested and wants to talk more, set up a meeting on Tuesday afternoon. Monday afternoon, sorry. We're going to do evening, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Okay, ignore me, it's not Tuesday. 6 p.m. And so we'll loop back with the instructors in the school.
Yeah. Yes, so go home and think about, and just show up if you're interested. This is the 10-minute took a year to report on and produce. It takes time, and we don't have that much time. So that's why it's interesting to work together and just see if you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, it's very exciting to be here, and thank you all for coming and for your questions. I guess we were thinking of, hopefully, we will send like a one-page, just a little bit more explanation so that you'll have something in writing before Monday so you can consider it more fully. And then Monday evening, we'll meet and we'll brainstorm. And we're thinking of, we have probably until June, hopefully, to come up with various things. And we're not here, so we'll be doing most of that. It'll be people doing independent projects, but we will be there to then, check in and by Skype or things like that. But we'll send you, one page, hopefully soon. And then we look forward to speaking more. Yeah, did you want to?
Thank you.
Ioni ringraziamo per essere qui ed è felicissimo di essere qui, è il produttore di Laura, di quel video che avete appena visto, e sarà parte integrante del progetto tra Manifesta, CSC e lo staff appunto di Laura Poitras. Giusto due elementi organizzativi. Loro qualcuno di voi già l'ha capito, comunque lunedì dalle 6 in poi ci sarà un meeting con chi di voi è interessato al progetto, a collaborare con Laura e il suo staff per un progetto che dovrebbe essere completato, la cui deadline sono i primi di giugno, perché subito dopo parte Manifesta, e quindi questi materiali, queste idee, le vostre idee artistiche, il vostro lavoro sarà parte integrante, diciamo, anzi sarà la parte fondamentale del progetto e del punto di vista di Laura rispetto alla Sicilia all'interno di Manifesta. Quindi ci rivediamo lunedì dalle 6 in poi. Qualcuno chi di voi è interessato rediga un'idea, diciamo un concept, una suggestione, una sensazione che magari interessa, semplicemente vorrebbe approfondire nel corso di questi mesi. Dopo lunedì, e quindi dopo questo meeting, ci prenderemo del tempo per decidere che strade prendere e quindi organizzare fattivamente il progetto, che, giusto precisarlo, è all'interno dell'attività didattica del Centro Sperimentale Sede Sicilia. Lo sarà fino a giugno.
Forse un'ultima cosa, perché sono moltissime informazioni che avete ricevuto adesso. Noi metteremo assieme un foglio dove spiegheremo un po' quello che si è detto oggi, anche in vista di lunedì, così voi avete un po' di tempo con il fine settimana di farvi un paio di idee. Noi saremo molto contenti di ospitarvi il più possibile. Chi ha voglia di venire, come diceva Leandro, alle 6 al Teatro Garibaldi lunedì, per creare un spazio, per dare spazio a tutto quello che vi è passato anche a voi per la mente dopo questa introduzione.
Diciamo un pensiero personale, ma è inutile forse ribadirlo, però io conosco questa scuola da anni, non è mai accaduta una cosa simile, è un evento veramente incredibile, un'opportunità unica per tutti voi di lavorare con il team di Lora, lavorare per Manifesta. Insomma, io mi auguro che tutti voi possiate andare, tutti voi possiate contribuire con il vostro tassello al progetto che stanno creando insieme. Quindi dico, fossi in voi studente non perderei assolutamente questa occasione, insomma è unica, è più unica che rara, quindi approfittatene, solo questo. Grazie a Laura, Ioni, Henrik, Andres, Carlo Coppola, Maria Chiara Trapani, Tatiana. Grazie mille.